Can anyone tell me what the first column says? The 3 columns? What I know? Okay, what do I know? We're talking about, let's say, I'll use the Civil War. Okay, what do I know about the Civil War? You're asking the children to fill in as much as they can. Maybe individually, maybe in small groups. What do I want to know? Okay, nothing. Okay, fine. Okay, but even so, then you have to probe a little bit more. Think about a war for a minute. What might be some important information that you didn't list in your first column that you think should be? In other words, I'm going to tell you right now, everybody, that you're going to be teaching a class on the Civil War to all the parents in the room. I'm just making this up, but let's just say something like this. You have to prepare a paper on the Civil War. What information are you missing that you need to get? What does it do to a child to do this? Think of the mind of anybody. Your students.
Gets them more organized, more focused.
Great. It organizes, by the way, that's visual spatial. That organizational piece is very important. There are many of us that learn best when we see it in a box, in a chart, laid out in a flow chart, right? Too often we don't take enough time to use the graphic organizer type model, right? And that's really a valuable skill. What else? Think about me as a learner. If I sit there passively, or if a classroom gets up and he says, today we're learning the following in math. Now we may not have a choice in that because that's the way the book is set up and that's what the curriculum says. And that's the mathematical sequence. Maybe that's true. But in many cases, if I'm just a passive participant and the entire agenda is set by somebody else, I don't feel as engaged and as excited as if I have a voice in setting that agenda. So if 2 weeks before I start the Civil War, I, the teacher, already learned 20 things about the Civil War that my children want to learn, right? Some of them might be things I was planning to teach anyway. Some of them might be new. And if it's not really that irrelevant, such as, Ulysses Grant's sock color or something, some minutia that's really not important, I'm going to try to find a way to incorporate it. And maybe I'm even going to put in my notes the name of the kid who wrote it on his paper. I had a Rebbe, Yehuda Aldam Zaygezunt, who's one of the leading mechanchim of the last generation. My Rebbe in Royers in 9th grade. He used to, when a child asked a good question or offered a good answer, whatever it was, in the summary notes that he'd write, he would oftentimes place the name of the child next to the information as a way of recognizing them for contributing to the class. So if your note's already prepared, so be it. But there might be an opportunity where you can actually make a personal touch and inspire the children to, okay. Now, what is the last, yes, please.
I was going to say some of just the things that are going through my head for the Civil War thing. If they stumble on what I want to know, like if you're talking about the Civil War, you can bring up the prisoner of war camps and say, ask them to a comparison, maybe during World War II, concentration camps, horrible conditions, horrible outcomes. Not the same,
right?
But some similarities, especially if you're going to use a Venn diagram.
Sure.
You could say, what are some of the shared details? Okay. New weapons, like during World War II, what was a new weapon?
Right.
Everyone would go, yeah.
So you're getting ahead of me, which is good, because you're obviously tapping into some of the other graphic organizers here also. Right. And Venn is really very powerful. So let me just, if I may for a second, stay on this column, and then hopefully we can come back to Venn in a little bit. This last one, what did I learn, right? I think you found it. Tell me if I'm wrong here. Actually, you can demonstrate for me with the thumb up or thumb down on this one. Do you find it valuable when I take a minute and go back to these questions, like the ones we just looked at? What are the three types of differentiation? What are the benefits? If you find a quick summary like that to be beneficial for you in terms of your own learning, please indicate that this way. If you find it not to be helpful, please indicate it this way. Okay, so we've got 5 and 1 extension. I'm not really sure.
Because it depends how often you're doing it and under what circumstances.
Okay, but it can potentially be helpful.
It can potentially be helpful.
Okay, fine. So that potential benefit could exist here also. Because what I'm asking you to do now, tell me what are the big things you learned from the class that we, either one class or a unit, right? And you go back to your notes and you can go check, 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 right? The students can actually see what was already taught and what did they learn that was new. And it creates sort of like this big picture analysis of the information. It's not just leafing through notes, 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 but they're actually starting to see some big items here, which can be very, very helpful.